I am recording this right after, or at least the day after Impact, CFS Impact Finals. So I apologize for my appearance if it is a bit, if it is a bit, as we say in the Tagalog, magulo, or a bit, if I look a bit like a bum. Anyways, some news actually dropped as of recent. I was working on a scripted video, and that is gonna come out very soon. But unfortunately, I cannot ignore the news that this dropped recently. Of course, with Revenge now joining Team Stallions. Revenge, obviously, being the only or one of the only Filipinos to win an international trophy. So you have to respect the clout from that, right? I feel like CFGI. It was significant, Carbon, one of the few times that they actually made it to a grand final. Shout out to my boy Famous, but Macta had to win that back in 2018, and they had this whole dominant era of Crossfire back in the day. And in my opinion, still that Revenge is probably still is the player with the highest peak of all time of any Filipino player, and that is really hard to ignore because if you are gonna be thinking of Filipino Crossfire, you immediately think of Revenge. So that's just what it is, right? That's just what it is. And obviously, Revenge, she has been the best sniper in the country for about, let's say, 2013 up until 2023, 2022. I don't know, 2023, he was still definitely one of the best, but there was some snipers already kind of crawling up to his expectations, similar to Rels and the Boys back in the day, and I think Zetra wasn't really a player yet back in the day. I think he entered at around 2024, so I think that was the time when Zetra entered. I feel like the entire hierarchy did change, but for the longest time, Revenge was the guy, the sniper guy for Filipino Crossfire. And obviously, he did play in the recent Open qualifier, but I feel like you have to look at the Open qualifier run with a bit of nuance. You really don't know if it was kind of a for fun thing or did they actually go for a full try hard trial. There is that thing, there is that factor that we do not see, especially for teams that are playing in the Open qualifier. Are they doing it for fun, or are they just are they actually locked in to qualify for this one? And I feel like it was more of the for fun side here for Revenge. If it's not, then unfortunate that that's how their Open qualifier ended up. But Revenge in the big 2026, his stock is quite low, especially after that Open qualifier run. But I feel like Tanks, of all people, does recognize value in places where most people do not see. So, yeah, we're going to have to wait and see about that decision. So, KLP. Enter KLP. Obviously, the kid has been in this roster since day one. He's been here since the Ubek Maniac days back in 2024, and even way back then with a bit of history already with some of the other Cebuano players on the team. And he was here right before the Loy era as well, with Dolphax kind of playing at Loy's helm when they got, if I'm not mistaken, fourth in the, there it is, Crossfire Stars Philippines Masters 2024. This is where everything changed. This is the part where everything changed. But that is for another video very, very soon. But of course, KLP, I think right after their run in Crossfire Stars in 2024, where obviously they went undefeated in sub-base, but unfortunately wasn't enough to really get into playoffs. And it was a similar thing as well for the boys over at SGJ. So, changes were made for the big 2025, and it seems like them acquiring Loy was probably one of the best things to ever happen to Stallions. It really was a huge upgrade. I'm not saying that Dolph in itself is not, a good player. Dolph is a great player. I think he's the best sixth man in the entire world, if anyone were to ask me, and I feel like he really would fulfill a very nice role on another team if he does choose to do so. But I feel like he won't because he is loyal to the cause of Stallions and the Ubek Maniac, journey itself. But KLP has been here since day one. Obviously, has been up and down, but for the longest time that he has had this narrative throughout 2025 and even some parts of 2024 that he has been the weakest link for Stallions. And a lot of people are confused about this narrative, and they're thinking, hey, in 2025, they won, they got third and fourth for ACL, they got second in PH Masters, And, they got fourth in EWC. That's a very big achievement. First in regional, second in Crossfire Stars 2025. I think, honestly, KLP had one of the best runs as well in the CFS 2025 tournament up until we had a top 4 or a top 2 competition. I feel like he actually did pretty well in the semis, but when it came to the grand finals, he kind of did, yeah, what can you do up against the OO, man? The guy's a demon. But I feel like we cannot talk about this particular role on Stallions the exact same way. And this comes to my point with snipers in Crossfire in the Big 26, where the demand is now a lot higher for snipers. KLP obviously is a great sniper. I think his role is definitely understated for Stallions. He is the backline overseer, maybe will be opening from time to time and a whole like that. But problem is now with snipers in the Big 26, and I've noticed this pattern back when XQQ won 2024 in Evolution Power, where snipers will have a lot more demand this year especially. That means snipers will have to go the entry route, the lurk route, the backup route. So snipers, you really have to do everything and anything in the map in order for your team to perform optimally. And I feel like KLP is sort of struggling in this role. I feel like he's really good at, being the backup guy, being the guy who will possibly clutch the, 1 versus 3, 1 versus 2, but I feel like that kind of style is now slightly outdated. I feel like that style is more on the era where Baisha was more dominating, where Xiao Xiao, he was really prevalent with that kind of style. But I feel like in 2026, you cannot just be the sniper that sits back in the back line and just waits for stuff to happen, or at least waits for a situation to present itself, because especially now with the new guns, opportunities have to be grabbed now. It's no longer, all right, we just have to sit around, wait for mistakes, maybe peek a corner and all that stuff. No. Crossfire in the Big 2026 will be about proactivity. And I feel like, especially on the snipers, the strongest snipers of today are the most proactive. Case in point, DOO. I feel like that was one of the main reasons why Goken actually had the huge upgrade in CFBL. Granted, he was still doing his, somewhat baity kind of style, but it still works for him because it's Goken. But at the same time, he was also presenting a new dimension for his sniping back in Brazil. And at the same time, same thing has to happen for KLP. You have to upgrade all of your fundamentals, all of your thinking of how the sniper works, because what he's doing right now definitely is working in the local part of Crossfire, but it was kind of exposed in the grand finals. And despite the 3-0, I feel like Zetra played slightly better compared to KLP. And that could be a hot take, but that could be also a reason why that Revenge is also coming in. I feel like Revenge is not going to come in on a permanent basis. I feel like he won't fully replace KLP, but rather it would be a challenge for KLP. Since Revenge is now on the team, hey, your slot's in danger, and I can kind of read tanks, and he's interpreting this as a challenge towards KLP, and he's saying, hey, here's my old friend Revenge. He's really good in every single thing, and it's either you learn from him or you get replaced by him, which is a scary prospect if you are any other player in Crossfire in the Philippines. But we're talking about Stallions here. This is a system that works not like anyone else, and I feel like KLP will be welcoming that challenge, and obviously will be trying to absorb as much knowledge as possible from Revenge, especially how to perform in playoffs like this. Because if KLP performs like this in playoffs every single time that he appears in the international stage and in the local stage, they might be in trouble. But honestly, we have to rate his C Masters run. Honestly, group stage, we're gonna skip it. I feel like group stage he did fine. He was doing great up against any team that is outside of top 5, top 4. He had a bit of struggle up against Fervid, but I feel like he recovered really well in the other series as well against the top teams. However, when it came to playoffs, this was the trouble that I think Tanks was kind of pointing at when they were kind of conversing in the panel. So obviously, we already have STS versus Fervid. Stallions versus Fervid, 15-12. That's fine. That's fine for Stallions, but at the same time, they did lose this map. But this is props to Fervit as well because their macro was absolutely insane in this game and their teamwork really made the rest of the team struggle. At the same time, I think they were targeting no more than anything. But this is now the time for KLP to probably get a carry game going, man. Loy's struggling, JJ struggling. You know what the tagline is for Stallions? If your guns ain't working, you might as well help your teammates. And I feel like Loy was helping his teammates as much as possible in this position, but he was really struggling in that hotel area. So, who had to step up? KLB stepped up massive in this one, and I feel like KLB stepped up massive too. But I feel like he could have squeezed a bit more off of his sniper performance here. But I feel like it wasn't really his fault at the end of the day. JJ had a bad game. Loy had a bad game as well. Game two, really big recovery here from JJ especially. I feel like JJ had a huge impact in this map, but we cannot ignore the main point of this video. KLP going 14 and 18, and obviously Lunds going 25 and 17. This is Eagle Eye 2.0. This is a map that Stallions have already played countless of times because, we've seen it in international. They've beat, Chinese teams, Brazilian teams, Vietnamese teams already on this map, and this is no excuse for KLP to perform like this. Up against Lunds of all people, up against Lunds of all snipers. Lunds, probably one of the newest, most dynamic snipers in this scene, and this is what I was talking about. Lunds is playing within this new framework of sniper, of him having to do everything for the squadron. It isn't really required, but I feel like if you have a sniper that acts more like a Swiss Army knife for your team, it is going to benefit the team a lot more. So I feel like that was one of the main reasons why this game was also very, very close, thanks to the system that Fervid is also running. Map 3. 10-7 going in the way of Stallions. And I feel like this is now the biggest concern for Stallions, right? Port. It's a map where KLP has to perform. Granted, he will not be playing top A most of the time or some of the time because I feel like Loy has been playing a lot more on the A site now, but at the same time, they have been kind of switching up their port game. The snipers, I've noticed as well on port, they're now playing less on top A, more on the mid side. But I feel like if you are going to be playing port, going 11 and 11 and having Fervid go as close as they are in this port map, granted, I feel like Lunds didn't perform this well in this map, but the implication is if he did perform on this map, Stallions would 100% lose. Since Lunds didn't perform, he still has the excuse, hey, he's a kid. He's a young kid. He's just coming in, second year on Fervid, 1 year on Impact. Now it's his first Masters playoff. He has excuses. He has at least some things to go fall back upon. KLP doesn't have any of those because the standard that Stallions upholds its players on and the community upholds them on is the golden standard. And if this is the golden standard, unfortunately, the golden standard will not be enough up against Chinese teams. So, I'm not angry, but just very passionate. But we're going into set 4, obviously. I think this was a 3-1. Yeah, it was a 3-1, if I'm not mistaken. KLP, once again, 12 and 13 in this game. It is the map of New Compound. It's a bit more excusable considering it's a lot more close spaces in this one. Luntz once again not performing. A7J though had a hell of a game in this one, and I feel like could have been stopped a lot more by the side of Stallions, but I feel like KLP going 12 and 13 on Compound, definitely one of the harder maps to snipe. This is more excusable for him, and I feel like he did fine for this game. He actually had some huge frags that kind of caused some wins, and he had some good multis as well, so big props to him for this set 3. But his set 1 and set 2 were definitely leaving more to be desired in this one. And, had an extra tab. But, of course, we are going to be going to the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room, obviously, being the Grand Finals. Grand Finals was horrible for KLP, considering this is finally the time for him to put to sleep the best sniper in the region conversation, and I feel like it was put to sleep temporarily considering Stallions did win the trophy, but looking at it again, looking at the Grand Finals with more of a magnifying glass, KLP going 6 and 12 at first, obviously not ideal. Zetra going 14 and 13. I mean, both of them had, not the best of games. KLP having it slightly worse. Zetra was still hitting his shots. Consistency is there for Zetra. KLP, he could maybe go for a Game 2 redemption. Game 2. Ooh. Oh, the chat is still open, but there we go. Game 2. 11, 10, and 3 for KLP, and for Zetra, 19 and 13. That is something that cannot happen for KLP, especially considering the map is Eagle Eye. Once again, Eagle Eye, it's a map you've played time and time again. You've beaten multiple Chinese teams on it and multiple, Brazilian, Vietnamese teams on it, and yet you get outsniped by Zetra in the grand finals in Eagle Eye 2.0. Obviously, your teammates are going to cover for you, 100%. Kano having a really good performance, going 14 headshots in this one. But as KLP, if you have this, what if No didn't perform like this? You could have possibly lost Eagle Eye 2.0, considering that you have one of the most important spots in the map, which is either HM or top A or house A in this situation. So you're holding some very important positions in this one, and I feel like just going slightly positive isn't really ideal for what Stallions is looking for. Once again, 11 and 10. That's a fine one. Fine. Fine is not the standard here for Stallions. They are looking for great. So fine won't cut it, unfortunately. And I feel like the cherry on top in this one is the 6 and 13 performance here on New Compound. And I feel like New Compound, granted, just like what I said earlier, it's a map where snipers are having a hard time performing considering the close spaces, but at the same time, going 6 and 13 isn't really the way to go, especially, Kano going 26 and 13. That's big, man. That's really, really huge. But at the same time, you can kind of see the arguments now starting to go back in the way of Zetra, of being the best sniper in the Philippines, because KLP still has that playoff performance trouble. Yes, he will go 1 KD, 1.1 KD, 0.9 KR, a 0.8 KR for the team. However, come on, man, it's the sniper role in the Big 26. I feel like the 0.78 KR will not cut it at this point, and going plus minus 65 compared to the other snipers who are going plus minus 100 at this point with the positions that they are taking. And honestly, an absurd stat here by no, but ADD things. But KLP, once again, I feel like the golden standard is being upheld, and obviously KLP did not meet that golden standard in the grand finals. So what is going to be the move here for Tanks? Let's come in. Let's take revenge. Put him on the team. Get a bit of sweat on KLP's brow, and let's say, all right, this guy will be here. He could replace you. Maybe he could not. But it's entirely dependent on you whether you could take the challenge of can you hit the next level? Can you break the ceiling? Can you break the glass ceiling for KLP? If you can turn into the sniper that is ideal for the meta of 2026, the sniper that does everything, the entry, the lurking, the supporting, the clutching at this point. I mean, you're already doing that, but you need to do the other three as well. Dynamic snipers will be the meta for the big 2026, and that's for Crossfire. That's for Crossfire. And honestly, I just wanted to do an unscripted video, and I was just inspired by another YouTuber. Big shout out to Launders, by the way, for this kind of format. It is very easy to do, and in my opinion, I feel like it's one of the best formats that you could use to just kind of spout out your opinion about things. But that is it for me. More content coming soon, and peace.